all friends. It'd be just like this group here. Everybody knew everybody, but now the group that was from Harlem, there was, like I say, 14 of us. I am the only one of the 14 left.
When you think of that, you're the last of the 14 that's left. How does that make you feel?
Strange.
Why is that?
Well, you know, we were all basically the same age, and I wonder why I'm the last one, especially in my physical condition.
Could you describe what Harlem High School was like while you were attending there?
Very different than what it is now. It was right on the corner of North 2nd and Harlem Road. A big old brick building. I believe it was 3 stories, but it was very small. I think there, in our junior class, I think there were 60.
Wow.
So it was very much smaller than what it is now.
After John's junior year at Harlem, he decided to enlist in the Army. Several other of John's classmates enlisted in the Army. They all went together.
Most of us that were juniors were, 17, and you had to be 17 before you joined. There was 6 of us that were juniors, and 6 that were seniors, and Dwayne, I said, was a sophomore. So it was 14 of us, all total, to start with. At that particular time, in 1950, anybody, once they were out of high school, and by the time they were 18, they had to register for the draft. And at that time, you had to spend time on active duty. And so we figured, well, we might as well get a head start on it and have some of our service in before we had to go on active duty. But everybody knew eventually they had to serve. Dwayne Huey was a sophomore. When he joined the reserves here in Rockford, he lied about his age and didn't have to furnish a birth certificate or anything, so he was only 16. And he was kind of a big burly kid, and I can see why when he lied about his age, they believed him. When we got out there to California and we went down to San Diego to boot camp, they found out that he had lied about his age. And so they turned around, they sent him home with the stipulation that when he graduated from high school, he had to come back into the Marine Corps. And he did.
When did you first realize that boot camp was different than regular civilian life?
The minute you got there. You were scared stiff before you got off the bus. You have a couple of big sergeants standing out there and yelling at you, and you aren't even on the ground yet. But it was quite an experience. I'd never go through it again, but I'm glad I did that one time. In the service, the minute you started out in the service, you did what you were told right now, with no questions asked. And like I say, we went down to boot camp. We spent a couple months down there, I guess. When we finished, we were given a 10-day leave. We could come home for 10 days. And then we had to report back to Camp Pendleton. Our first training session was a trip to Little Creek, Virginia for amphibious training. And this was the first part of June of 1950. We went out there by train, and after our 2 weeks of training, we came back. We flew back with an old military aircraft. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen one, but they don't have seats like an airplane that you're accustomed to. They've got a metal frame on each wall, the whole length of the plane, and it folds down, and the seats are canvas between a metal frame. So we're on our way back, and the pilot radioed back to us. He said, "Fasten your seat belts. We're going to run into some rough weather." Well, we had all our gear down the center of the plane with a big cargo net over it. And just all of a sudden, everything in the middle went right to the ceiling. Well, when it settled down again, the pilot radioed back and he says, "We just dropped 1,000 feet." And it only took a matter of probably 2 or 3 seconds. And continued on our flight, and we got close to Rockford, and the pilot got on the intercom again, and he says, "We just got news, there's a war started in Korea." We all looked at each other. "Korea? Where's that?" Nobody ever heard of it.
The Korean War started when the North Korean army invaded over the 38th parallel into South Korea. The cause of the Korean War dates back after World War II, where the United States and the Soviet Union agreed to have temporary borders in Korea, the United States controlling South Korea and the Soviet Union controlling North Korea until they could unify the country together. In 1948, the United States and South Korea started elections to form government. The Soviet Union refused and started the communist government and appointed Kim Il-sung in charge. After persistent pleading from Kim Il-sung to invade South Korea, Stalin gave permission. On June 25, 1950, North Korea surprised South Korea with the invasion. Kim Il-sung was positive that the United States would not intervene. He was wrong. The U.S. declared war on North Korea. 2.8 million U.S. citizens either drafted or enlisted themselves, like John Robinson.
The veterans from World War II were shipped to Korea within 2 weeks.
Many veterans of World War II headed for shore in the first amphibious assault of the Korean War.
We got orders to report to California as a unit, and we were an infantry company. We were supposed to leave, I think it was the 11th of July, but there was so many troops going into the California that they couldn't process all of us. So they gave us a stay, and we didn't go until August. And we went by troop train. They put together a regular troop train for us. And like I say, there was 217 of us total. We got out to California, and they started processing us. And anybody that had been in less than a year was transferred down to San Diego to go to boot camp. You know, there was quite a few of us that had less than a year, so that's what happened to us. And then we had to report back to Camp Pendleton. And when we did, why then they moved us around, put us in different outfits. And myself, I went into an artillery outfit. It started out, I was a loader. It was my job. It took 2 guys to lift a projectile on a tray and 2 more to ram it into the breech of the gun. And then it was my job to put the 42 pounds of powder in behind it. And it was about a year later, I was promoted to corporal. And then they changed my job. I was what they called the ammunition corporal. So it was my responsibility when a truck came in with our ammunition. It was all unloaded into a pit. And if we got what they called a fire mission, which we had to fire the artillery piece, it was up to me to get a projectile ready, put a fuse in it, and get the powder and get it all ready to be fired.
Were you anticipating being sent to Korea?
Yeah, at one time we were, because like I say, when we joined that one artillery outfit, we were all new, started training. Well, it took a year before we were, might say, combat ready. And we were thinking that we were going to go overseas. And all of a sudden there was, orders came through, they split our outfit in half and made two battalions of artillery. We started training all over again. When they split our outfit in half, they had 2 battalions of artillery, but we had a whole bunch of new guys that had to be retrained or trained. So we started all over again. And by the time we had them trained, they started releasing some of us.
John was getting ready to go to Korea when his infantry company was starting to be released. John never witnessed what was happening in Korea. However, the U.S. soldiers experienced during the Korean War was bloodshed, frostbite, stress, and loneliness from being away from home. Majority of the fighting happened around 38th parallel, where it eventually turned into a stalemate.
We came awful close to it, like I say, when they split our outfit in half and started retraining. Why, that ended it. But up until that point, we thought we would probably be going better. That's what we were out there for. That's what we signed up if need be, you know. We had been out there, like I say, 2 years, and the war in Korea was going in our favor.
The UN base camp in Munsan signed 6 copies of the document which would end the bloodshed.
So they let a lot of us return to Rockford. They released us from active duty, and we had to go back into the reserve unit. So I stayed in the reserves until 1954. It wasn't much, it was just on a train. They released us in California and they gave us our pay and back pay and vacation pay, stuff like that. And it was up to us to buy our own ticket and get our own way home. So we took a train they called the California Limited from LA to Chicago. And it was limited. It took us 4 days. I think it was limited to about 30 miles an hour.
Do you remember your first day back?
Yes.
What was it like?
Colder than hell. I'd been in California for 2 years. The day I left there, it was sunshiny, 75 degrees. I got into Chicago 4 days later and it was just a little above zero. Dwayne Deal, one of the guys, had a big party at his house one weekend. And we were all there with anybody that had girlfriend or wives or whatever. But other than that, after everybody got home, we all kind of went our separate ways. We'd run into each other once in a while, but nothing formal. Well, it's not a little town like it used to be. When I first came out here, I lived right on the corner of North 2nd and Lawn Drive. There was a little fruit stand right there on the corner, and I would live just to the south of it. And that entire block was all residents, all the way down to Pearl Avenue. On the corner of Pearl Avenue and North 2nd, it would be the southeast corner, was the old Top Hat Drive-In. I think everybody congregated there at one time or another.
So then you ended up working for the telephone company, correct?
Right.
How long did you end up working for them?
Almost 37 years.
What was your primary job with the telephone company?
Well, I had quite a few, but I was a lineman for, about 10 years. And a cable splicer and installer for a year. And then I worked inside for a while, too. She was also a Harlem graduate. And at that time, the school was, even right after I got out, everybody knew everybody. And we just started dating and ended up getting married in 56.
How'd you win her over?
I know you'd have to ask her.
How'd she win you over?
I don't know. Just one of those things, I guess. But this last June, we were married. We've been married 60 years. 2 girls, 2 boys.
Any grandchildren?
6. Great-grandchildren, 8.
Wow.
Been a busy bunch.
Going into vet doc this year, I didn't know what anything was on a technology standpoint. I didn't know what Premiere was, didn't know what B-roll was, didn't know what a 1 or 2 was. But as the year went by, I've understood it. Premiere is the program you use to make your doc. B-roll is the images and videos you use to provide in your doc. 1s and 2s are just a 1 being a first year at vet doc, a 2 is a second year at vet doc. I didn't know any of that. But I did know that I'd be coming into this class making a doc for a veteran. Doesn't matter if he saw war or didn't see any war. All I knew was that their story meant something the minute I picked it. And John's meant something. He's the last of the 14 at Harlem who served during the Korean War. And when I heard about that, I thought, oh, he went to Harlem, I go to Harlem. That'd be a cool doc to make of the present and the past. But now I've realized on how much more it is. John's doc changed how I thought about a class. I have to be more responsible, have to get the projects done in time, figure out what can I use, and not just be like, no, I'm not going to use that. because you have to keep figuring out in this class. And that's what John's doc did to me. Searching countless of images to find the right one for his doc. Figuring out how to find something even close to his doc. And yet, as time progressed, I've understood how to find it, understand to find alternatives. And John meant a lot to me, knowing that he was from Harlem. He walked these halls just in a different class of people in a different high school. I've seen every single one of the 14 when I walk by the halls and you see their pictures in the directory, watching you each day when you walk by them, and you're looking right back at them. John's taught me not to smoke, get a good education, go in the military. It's a good experience. I'm still thinking about going in the military. Finally, after so much nagging I've asked from Stangy to finally meet John. Finally got to meet him last weekend. And I tell you, my reaction was, I was shaking. Can't believe I finally got to meet him. And just getting to meet John was great. He taught me then that he's a kind soul, and that we have a little in common of going to Harlem. But also, I found out we were both Packer fans, and I found that was, to me, that was pretty cool. And I've realized that I'm more alike with John than I thought. And I'm hoping when he sees this doc that it brings him back down memory lane with him and the 14 when they were pals, going into the service, figuring out what they wanted to do with the rest of their lives. I am proud to get John's doc. I've figured out how to make tough parts of his story, make a big picture of it, and have it into the doc. John, thank you for letting me see your story, and I thank you for countless of times pushing myself to do this just for you. There were times where I wanted to come. I wanted to just come in, didn't really want to get work done, but I just kept telling myself, gotta get it done for John. And now, I'm happy to say that this doc is for John. Thank you.